Yes, Pastor Sean, how are you?
Hi, Commissioners. How you doing? As you can see, we're here with our Pike County Meeting Coalition. That's People Against the NDAA. And as we alluded to last time, in our meeting, you know, we're grateful that you hold public meetings, that where citizens can voice their opinions. That's a great thing, and thank God for that kind of forum in America, because it's so important. I just want to, of course, congratulate Mr. Wagner. I did want to meet him last time on the birth of your grandson, is that correct?
Pardon me?
On the birth of your grandson, did you have a grandson?
I sure did.
Okay, congratulations. You're going to have a lot of joy spoiling your grandson.
Better late than never.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. I want you to know, the Commissioners, that we're praying for you, and that you can pass the RCGR, which is the Restoring Constitutional Governance Resolution, which is a resolution that has already been passed in 6 different cities and counties. And that simply states that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that Pike County is not a battleground, and the laws of war do not apply to it. That's all that it says. I also want to congratulate you on your efforts for the capture of the suspected killers.
And that wasn't us, that was the Marshal Service and Pennsylvania State Police. They deserve all the glory and credit.
Yes.
All right.
And of course, you guys, you've met many times, Rich, and how you guys were working with the different
The county provided
help. So
any and all technical and space assistance that we could, and staff assistance. Ours was a support role.
Right.
They're the ones who put their lives on the line.
Yeah. In any case, we're always grateful that the Commissioners are working on such important tasks. I do have to admit, and I don't mean to insult you, Mr. Wagner, but I am a little disappointed that we have a new governor. I wish we, we'll see how he does, and we pray that he has all the best luck in his work. Today, we have some young people that wanted to speak and address the Commissioners. Of course, you also see that we have signs that people have made to, voice their opinions about the NDAA. And of course, the laws of war being applied to the United States, which is of course a serious thing. And I'd like to invite some of the young people who would like to speak today. Where's Shina? I'd like to go, Shina. You want to say some words?
I'm in school, and thank you for letting me voice my opinions. The National Defense Authorization Act is a threat to the nation and its people. The people should listen to the truth behind the NDAA and act for to speak out. If the NDAA stays, our privacy and human rights will be violated by the military. Section 1021 and 1022 authorize the application of the law of war, U.S. soil, and indefinite detention of American citizens without charge or trial. This is outrageous and violates our inalienable rights. Dan Johnson, the founder of PANDA, says the AUMF was very broad, but had a few protections unlike the NDAA. They moved the targeted profile that directly engaged with terrorist attacks to anyone in the neighborhood who happens to know them. The dangerous part about the NDAA is that it goes from a policy of retribution of going after the people who committed the 9/11 crime, and it goes to a policy of war and terror. And by emphasizing the war and terror onto the citizens, we feel fear. Statistics show that one is 8 times more likely to be killed by an American police officer as an innocent citizen than to die in a terrorist attack. With the passing of the NDAA, the federal government can go into private property and check inside homes without a warrant and disappear people. Personally, I would feel outraged and in fear of my life by the trespassing of the federal police. The trespassing is sane, even if the trespasser is a police officer or a burglar. Furthermore, the NDAA's use of the military against a citizen is totalitarian communism. Communism is currently active in a few countries, most notably North Korea. My grandfather has been present at this time when he was a young man. He was detained often, and more often beaten, stabbed, burned, and whipped. All this because he spoke about God. He was sent to jail for this reason, and even there, he preached to the people in his cell. He still had the scars left from the time before he passed away a few weeks ago. He lived through all the hardships of the tyrannical ruling of North Korea and finally escaped South Korea. The banning of religion in North Korea is just the same as Russia. Both of them were communists. Now America is walking this road. We, the people, need to make a stand. The NDAA is unconstitutional, and without the people speaking out, nothing will change and the nation will continue down its road to corruption. Please do the right thing and support the arts and culture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Good morning.
My name is Maria, and I'm 16 years old. I'm here today to talk to you about why we need to ban the NDAA, and I just have to make 5 simple points. So my main topic, my first topic, is going to be the purpose of the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act, and the goal of the people against the NDAA. The NDAA permits military detainment of the United States citizens indefinitely, and we, the people, against the NDAA, are seeking to abolish this unconstitutional law and defend American civil liberties from federal tyranny. So, a lot of people don't know exactly what the NDAA is, so I'm just going to give you a brief summary. Other than specifying budget and expenditures for the Department of Defense, it determines the agencies responsible for defense, and it establishes funding levels and sets the policies under which money will be spent. Other than the problem of indefinite detention, it also includes the intrusion detection and network penetration for defense. This means that they can hack into our network systems and they can track everything that we do online. Topic number 2 are the empires and countries that set the precedent for this NDAA. The countries that have indefinite detentions are Adolf Hitler's Germany, Joseph Vissarionovich Djugashvili Stalin's Russia, China, Cuba, North Korea, Burma, which is currently known as Myanmar, and now the USA. We hope that we don't walk the path of these communist countries. On February 19th of 1942, President FDR, he carried out the law, Executive Order 9066, after Pearl Harbor, and over 120,000 American citizens were imprisoned in concentration camps for nothing other than their ancestry. And the NDAA also allows us indefinite detention. We pray that this type of tragedy will never happen again. Topic number 3. Well, actually, before I move on to topic number 3, I'd like to give a personal account.
I'm sorry?
Before I move on to topic number 3, I have a personal account myself. My dad, he's Cambodian, and he lived through the communist regime of Pol Pot under the Khmer Rouge. And he was whisked away from his home in the middle of the night, away from his parents. His entire family was separated, and he was so scared. He was only 10 years old, and that was indefinite detention. And it was a country that was completely under the control of communism. And I just hope that our country will never ever walk that path. So, number 3 is the obscurities that are completely rampant in the NDAA. If you aren't given a trial, then all it takes is an accusation. You have no opportunity to prove your innocence. Guilty until proven innocent, and innocent until proven guilty don't matter anymore because you don't get a trial either way with the NDAA. And I ask you, define a belligerent act. I read up on this, and it means that an individual would be acting in a hostile manner. So belligerent is actually a very vague term to use. It derives from the Latin, which is bellum gerere, which means to wage war. Topic number 4. The religious freedoms and our God-given rights that the NDAA would violate and completely go against. Number 1 is the Bill of Rights, which are also known as the First 10 Amendments, and also the Constitution, both of which are meant to defend our God-given rights and religious freedoms. So the NDAA, it suspends our due process and habeas corpus, which is when a suspect is physically brought before a court of law in order to be given a trial so that they can avoid illegal detention. So I mentioned that they violate much of our amendments, so I'm going to give you the specific ones that it directly violates. Our 4th Amendment, our 5th Amendment, our 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Amendments. Those are 6 amendments out of the 10 in the Bill of Rights. So the 4th one is the search and seizure. Number 5 is the due process. 6 is the speedy public trial and a jury and the right to counsel. Number 7 is a civil trial by jury. Number 8 prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. And number 9 is the protection of rights not stated specifically in the Constitution itself. And my final topic are the places that have already passed resolution in order to ban the National Defense Authorization Act. We have number 1, which is Emmett, Idaho. Number 2, Middleton, Idaho. Number 3, Gem County, Idaho. Number 4, Oxford, Massachusetts. Number 5, Webster, Massachusetts. And number 6, Albany, New York. And hopefully, with your help and understanding, Pike County can be added to that list. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Paul, and I'm on the deviated type of football team. And also, I'm on the wrestling team, and this will be my second year. I also thank you for having a public open meeting where I can speak. The NDAA is a tyrannical law that gives the president, along with any other future presidents, to capture, detain you, and also have the power to imprison you without any due process of law. Thus, it goes against the God-given rights, that is the Bill of Rights. As my friend Neri said, it takes the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Technically, it takes most of them away. When the president has the power to detain you at any time without due process of law, the nation becomes corrupt. Then it slowly progresses to something bigger, constantly exercising more power, chipping away at the Bill of Rights, maybe even getting rid of it forever, which will lead to socialism, then to communism, which is proven throughout history because we can see it. We already know our friend Neri, whose father went through communism, and he was forcibly detained without any due process of law. However, I personally know someone who went through this type of detainment, my grandfather. He was detained without due process of law under the North Korean rule, under the Japanese colonial rule, and under South Korean rule after World War II. His God-given rights were stripped away. He was indefinitely detained without any due process. He was beaten, tortured, and left for dead. Standing barely, clinging on to the very life was given by God. I never saw it, but many say my grandfather had many scars on his body. It shows how painful it was to live under those circumstances. If he had died in the death camps, I wouldn't even be here grieving and giving this speech. My cousin Shina wouldn't be here. My friend Neri wouldn't be here either. I also would have never existed and never met my family, whom I love and respect to this day. Commissioners, would you like to go through this kind of tyrannical law?
Say again, Paul, please. I apologize. I'm a little old, I'm a little hard of hearing.
Commissioners, would you like to go through this type of tyrannical law?
No, sir.
Me too, sir.
That's why I took an oath in 1967 to support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps.
God gave us the Bill of Rights, but was not given by the government, the president, nor Congress, but the one who created us. God gave us the free will to let us choose what we want to do, to be responsible for our action, not to be chained down. So, Commissioners, do you care about our rights? I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you young people because it's nerve-wracking for them in a public forum to address you. Because they respect you. They respect you, and they of course are very concerned about this type of act. As I mentioned before, the NDA is a racist prejudice act. This type of law was used to detain Asian Americans simply because you're Asian. Over 120,000 Asians during World War II were imprisoned for up to 2 to 3 years. That's total racism. And in 1998, Ronald Reagan and the federal government had to rule that that was based on race prejudice, on war hysteria, and a lack of political leadership. So that's a reality in our history. As well as 2001, where the AUMF, which is what the NDAA extends off of, the AUMF is the authorization of use of military force. And that was used to detain Arab Americans, over 1,200, simply because they were, like our brother Muhammad, of Arab Arabian descent. We cannot tolerate that kind of racism and that kind of law being looming over the citizens in the United States of America. That's just not acceptable. And I just want to thank the young people that spoke out today. And Commissioners, we're on your side. We want you to be the heroes of Pike County. We want to celebrate you. We want to be able to cheer you on to do the good work that you are doing. And we're simply asking, what you're doing is we're demanding that you be the heroes that we know you can be. because we know that you took an oath to the Constitution, like you said, to support, defend, and to obey the Constitution, as well as the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as well as the Pike County citizens. And so that is your solemnly declared public oath, which of course is in newspapers statewide. And so we know you believe in that oath, and you commit to that oath. And so we're simply asking that you pass the RCGR, which has already been passed in 6 different counties around the United States, spreading quite rapidly. It simply says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land in Pike County. That's all it says. And it says that the laws of war do not apply. And that people cannot be arrested, captured, detained, disposed of under the laws of war or the auspices thereof, and or, of course, be suspect to targeted killing in or because of the laws of war in Pike County. Those are things that I think none of you would disagree with. So we really wish that you can, pass the RCGR, because I believe that if Pike County can start the momentum, then we can, as you said, as we grieve for the state of affairs in our country today, we can start restoring civil liberties, restoring the Constitution. And I know Rich, and I know Matt and Carl, we've talked about these in different times, that you're strong constitutionalists. And I uphold that, and I commend you for that. This would simply be a declaration to the people that you stand to defend us against federal usurpations that are clearly stated in the RCGR, and that you protect our rights. So we thank you again for the time to be able to address you. Thank you.
Anybody else on this particular subject? Okay. Anybody else? Because now we're going to take the opportunity to respond.
Going twice. Okay. Yeah. People can be bought in, especially it seems in Washington. And as a human being, we come under all kinds of pressure, especially to keep our job, to keep our alliances, to keep our associates. And under this kind of pressure, it seems that people who get sent to Washington sell the people out. And how else can you have the clause about belligerent acts remain so vague when it was contested in court and almost thrown out and only left in there because of an emergency stay? When a judge said it's absolutely unconstitutional, for us to freak out as a nation over the threat of terrorism, not terrorism, but the threat of terrorism,
Right.
to have our fears become our master, where we're willing to take our fellow citizens without due process because we're scared of things that haven't happened. And we're willing to use this vagary, belligerent act, to snatch people up off the streets and detain them indefinitely. We're being scared into being completely un-American. And the only way, since Washington is so far away, is for us to recall that, sheriffs in the town that you live in are actually the highest law enforcement officer, is to recall that and to remind ourselves in our small communities that we will not allow the craziness, the detached craziness of Washington, D.C. to cause us to take on the same insanity where we're actually hypocrites, where we say we uphold the Constitution, but we allow people who have secondary and tertiary authority in our own town to come in and act as if our authority doesn't matter. So I really think that the sheriffs and the commissioners and the mayors who have passed this, they probably had to go through some kind of internal battle, and I really On the drive up here, I was really thinking about the commissioners, and I really appreciate what you must have to go through in order to consider this. But I ask you to love our country one more time, and pass the restoring constitutional resolution. Is there anything else I want to say about that? I don't think so.
Well,
But I really I really appreciate what you must have to go through. Thank you very much.
Just because someone doesn't agree totally in the process doesn't mean that we don't agree in principle, right? So when you say, and I mean no insult to anybody, when you say, love your country one more time, my life has been a testimony to that. And when I read, and Pierre, this goes to you, certain emails that say Operation Restore the Bill of Rights in Pike County, that cuts to my heart. Never would I betray that oath. And just because I may not pass this resolution in the form that you presented, it doesn't mean that I'm in disagreement with that. That's a solemn pledge. It's not just words. It's a solemn pledge before Almighty God. And those of us as veterans know we would be willing to pay a price up to and including our lives. I feel what you're saying. I understand it. Because I personally have a great deal of trepidation about the overreach of our federal government. And I think that you're in good company as a result of last night's elections, because the American people are angry, and they went to the polls peacefully and expressed their anger by electing new people. And we better pray that these new people learn the lesson from the people that they've displaced, that they also serve the people of this country, the Constitution, and God, because that's what gives us our freedoms. And I appreciate the youngsters saying, thank you for letting me speak. Don't thank me. Thank all those.
We should thank you. You laid down your life to keep us free.
No, my life is here.
Well, you would have.
Let me finish, ma'am. But I want you to thank all those people, men and women, that gave their lives so that you can stand up there and speak.
Amen.
I am sorry for my emotion, but it's very personal. I want you to understand that we didn't take this lightly. We've done a lot of research. There's contrasting points in the argument. I really wish that this accumulation of people and the presentations made by everybody could be right in front of our congressman, because that's the person that votes yea or nay on this, not the commissioners. But I have a statement I want to read, but I'll defer to Mr. Farmer for a minute.
Pastor, I appreciate your enthusiasm and your commitment, and I applaud the young citizens that made your statements. And after your last meeting, the commissioners asked of the solicitor that I spend time and do research on the act, but more importantly, the cases that came down. You specifically cited Judge Forrester. So what I did is I did the legal research on the determinations by the courts. And I just want to explain so the individuals know, this case originally started by Christopher Hedges, a war correspondent, and other people from Times, paper and other articles, and they filed the complaint saying it was impacting on their free speech. And they said their concern was particularly in the Middle East for covering terrorism and organizations. It could cause them to be categorized as a covered person and therefore be a terrorist. It was held in an argument and a hearing took place only in front of Judge Forrester, a district judge. From what I've read, it appeared the government really didn't present much of a defense, and she was a little aggravated with them for not doing that. And she entered a preliminary injunction, which at first said the act could not be enforced. She then had a full hearing and said a final injunction could not be enforced. That's when the government started raising a defense to the arguments. And they went to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, first the circuit stayed her injunction, which means it didn't take effect. They then had a full hearing, and in fairness, they concluded that the act is constitutional. And as we speak, as you keep saying defend the Constitution, our courts have ruled that the statute as written is constitutional. And in fact, it was appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court of the United States would not hear it. And I thought out of courtesy, I went through it, and I found that, I think, the guts of why the Second Circuit said it was constitutional. And I just want to read it, because that explains why what they can't approve. It says, Section 1021E provides that Section 1021, which is your section, just does not speak one way or the other to the government's authority to detain citizens, lawful resident aliens, or any other persons captured or arrested in the United States, the court ruled. We thus conclude, consistent with the text and buttressed in part by the legislative history, that Section 1021 means this: with respect to individuals who are not citizens and are not lawful resident aliens and are not captured or arrested within the United States, the President's authority includes the authority to detain those responsible for 9/11, as well as those who are part of or substantially supported Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, or associated forces that are engaged in hostilities against the United States or its coalition partners. A detention authority that Section 1021 concludes was granted by other statutes. But with respect to citizens, lawful resident aliens, or individuals captured or arrested in the United States, Section 1021 simply says nothing at all. So it concluded it doesn't apply. I respect your theories, and I agree with you that we should never let our government have ultimate authority to just arrest anybody. The problem I have as an attorney is that as we speak, NATA was deemed constitutional as written. Poorly written, and it was said throughout their opinion, but constitutional. And they says it doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. So the issue as the solicitor for the county is with your resolution as written, I really can't support that. But what I did, understanding and listening, I hope listening well enough, understanding your concerns and understanding your points about, as your young speakers have said, statutes that are unconstitutional, statutes that give the government too much authority, that they are overbroad, that I drafted a resolution that I think meets your major concerns, and with the Commissioner's review and concepts, I believe the spirit of what you're asking has been enforced. But I can't in good conscience tell the Commissioners who, as you said, consistently have to abide by the Constitution, pass a resolution that say NATA is unconstitutional, when I have a Second Court of Appeals court saying it is constitutional. And that's what they rule. Now, I think with all due respect, the real solution is in a federal statute. You need to speak to our legislatures in federal government, Marino and others, and address your concerns. Because even this court seemed to agree that it was not artfully written, and that Judge Forrester at first blush could do what she did. But like all good judges, they suggest that maybe in hindsight her arguments worked out, but they overcame her completely. So you need to understand that. So with that, that's why perhaps...
With that said, I want to read this statement, and there's copies available on our stationery, and it's signed by all three of us. You can keep a copy, take it with you. I'm sure the media would like one. The Pike Pike County Commissioners support the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Bill of Habeas Corpus. The Pike County Commissioners will always defend the rights of individual citizens. The Pike County Commissioners will support the citizens' rights to request a court to determine if the statute is unconstitutional. The Pike County Commissioners will never support a statute that has been deemed unconstitutional by the courts of this Commonwealth or of the United States. And that document is signed by all three of us, and you're all welcome to have as ample copies. That's our positive response, as opposed to being against somebody. All right? This is the document we're talking about. Second only in its importance and significance to God's holy word in the Bible. Okay? The motto of the United States Marine Corps is Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Until my dying breath, I support this. Yes, sir. Go right ahead. It's an open forum.
I understand those arguments. Those are arguments that were given by different legal teams. And the RCGR has been approved by the Oath Keepers legal team. That's a national, liberty-based organization. The Constitutional Sheriffs, Police Officers of America, that's also a national organization of police officers and sheriffs. Of course, you know of them, Rich. They also have a legal team. As well as Patriot Coalition, which is also a national organization, and as well as PEN. They also have a legal team on those issues. The Supreme Court ruled that Obamacare is constitutional. But when you look at the Obamacare situation, you can clearly see that that is not in consistency with the U.S. Constitution. And just as Marbury and Madison stated, even though the Supreme Court itself ruled that all laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. So just because the Second Court of Appeals has stated those facts, that does not mean, just like Obamacare was passed at the Supreme Court, it doesn't mean that law is, or that system is constitutional. I am very aware of your statements, Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Farley, about the not applying to citizens. That actually appears in 1022, section 1022. It does say that it does not apply to citizens, but it does not prohibit it from applying to citizens. And you know, as a lawyer, that's a very important nuance of word. Whether or not it applies to you or it is prohibited to apply to you. And that's why it's so important that in the RCGR, the commissioners make a statement that they prohibit and see to be unlawful any of the uses of the laws of war as a trope to detain, capture, arrest, or target, kill a citizen of Pike County. That's why it's so critical that that language is present. As a lawyer, you
can I respond to that, sir?
Sure.
With all due respect, as we speak, the act is deemed constitutional. Just hear me out. And they have an obligation to abide by it, as ruled by the courts. But I accept your premise that if something is unconstitutional, and that's what I suggested that, we support the overturning of unconstitutional laws. But there's a balance as an elected official.
Sure.
You must honor the court system as presented. I really think your remedy is not here. It really is with Marino and the rest of our legislature, federal legislators, to change it. But our resolution supports your broad concepts. But at the same time, as commissioners, we can't say an act is unconstitutional when the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, as written, and not overturned by the Supreme Court as we speak, they wouldn't deal with it. They said it is constitutional. I understand the arguments, but that's why I drafted it in such a way that we support, if it's deemed to be unconstitutional, we support your theory that if it's unconstitutional, it should be overturned, fine.
Yeah.
But I can't say it's unconstitutional when it has been ruled just the opposite. And in fact, Judge Forrester's opinion carries no weight. It'd just be like if Judge Shellac gave a decision, it goes to the Superior Court, and he's overturned. I may agree with him, but I must abide by the Superior Court decision.
Okay.
Same principle.
I totally understand you, Mr. Farley.
So that's why I thought that resolution was.
And I've practiced law for 35 years, and Tom's exactly right. I mean, I'll sign this, I signed it.
Sure.
But our system of laws was established a long time in our country, and we have the district courts, Court of Appeals, and we have the Supreme Court. Sure. They make rulings.
and we have to abide by those rulings.
Yes.
Now, if in the future they say the statute's unconstitutional, so be it. Then it'll be unconstitutional, and we'll abide by that. But right now, the court has ruled.
For me, it's common sense. The Fifth Amendment clearly says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presumptive indictment of grand jury. The Sixth Amendment states, in all criminal prosecution, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. The NDAA does not allow a impartial trial.
You said that this law went to the Supreme Court, they would not.
No, they tried to,
They tried, wait a
they
minute.
denied the appeal.
I mean, that's our system.
That's right.
There may be some laws that are passed there, even by the U.S. Constitution, by the U.S. Supreme Court, that we do not agree with personally, right? But it is the law of the land. I mean, that is what the system is. You may not agree with what's written there, but we have to say that the courts are saying it's constitutional. How can I sit here and say it's not? I'm not the Supreme Court. I'm not the courts. You know, we agree with you that if it's deemed unconstitutional, we agree also.
That's fine.
You know, we have to go by the law of the land. You thanked us for holding this meeting. You don't thank us. You thank us. You thank the Constitution. This is the way the system works, right? Everybody gets a chance to stand up, but we can't change that, right? Because we would violate the Constitution if we told you we didn't want to hear any of this.
Well, 6 other counties and over a dozen commissioners, just like you, have already passed it. I mean, they are comfortable in saying that they prohibit the laws of war to apply. And that's what's important for the citizens, that those laws have to be prohibited.
But it holds no weight.
Pastor, let me throw my oar in order again, please. And I give a dichotomous answer here. As an individual, private citizen, I'll sign that in a heartbeat. But sitting in my role and capacity, as a duly elected Pike County Commissioner representing 57,000 plus people in this county, I have to listen to the solicitors so that I don't endanger them in any way, protect their civil rights. And that's when we made the statement that we did. And I'll draw an analogy to Commissioner Ossenberg. I'm very straightforward and forthright in my position. I am unabashedly pro-life. I don't believe that innocent human life should be terminated because of convenience. And I don't care what the arguments are. Right? But at the same time, unfortunately, the Supreme Court made that legal. And we have tried since 1973 to reverse it and overturn it because it's repugnant. So that's the analogy I drew. I may not like this, but as a commissioner, I have to abide by the law. As an individual citizen, if you want to go to Marino's office, I'll drive you, and we'll have this conversation with him.
Yeah, Congressman Marina has, you were at the meeting, and he agreed to meet us and discuss the issue. We've been in contact with their people, and so they are scheduling that, so we will talk to Congressman Marino. It is, however, the local commissioners are the only people that we really get to have a real give and take with and address these issues. Yes, Congressman Marino is sometimes available, but to delve into these issues and have so many more pressures from Washington and different, issues that he has to deal with as a congressman. We know it's been the experience of Hannah that it has been tabled when it goes to that level, and that it's only possible to work with commissioners. And once a coalition is built that is strong enough and enough commissioners have signed on to simply upholding the Constitution in what the RCD says and banning the laws of war in their counties, that then you have the ability to talk at the next level, which would be the congressmen, the senators, etc. But we can't sort of subvert that process. For us, we don't want to waste time and energy and our resources to talk to people that are so high up the ladder and so pulled in different directions and with different issues and the culture of DC and all those kind of things where they may be disconnected with these type of issues that apply to real people and citizens on the ground.
I don't care how high up on the ladder they are. You're paying their salaries. They are public servants that work for you.
We're
Just
paying
like
your salaries too.
Absolutely.
And we support the Constitution. And
I got some hands up in the back, Pastor. I don't want to be impolite. Yeah, I'm sorry. This gentleman has his hand up first, I think.
My name is Muhammad Ayad, and from my name, I'm actually attorney.
That's
a
it.
target for the government
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
come after me like they did with the Japanese. And we can sit here and use all kind of fancy words back and forth and debate and say the law says this, no, we say that. Sir, I have personal experience. Okay, I know people after September 11th who had nothing to do with terrorism, disappeared, sent to prisons in Morocco, put in a dungeon. So we can use the fancy words. I can't speak that. I'm here not because of, with all due respect to Pastor Moon, I'm not here for Pastor Moon, I'm for me here. Because you may have heard of tyranny, I lived it. You may have heard of torture, I lived it. So for me here is my last stand, is do or die. What are we going to do? Speak fancy words or do something? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't think there's very fancy words in that document that we produced. It's a positive statement. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Robert McKellen spoke last night, but I took an oath too when I joined the Navy, and I understand what you mean. And it's lifelong. I appreciate that. But with all due respect to the solicitor and the legal deal, and not disputing anything that was said, I think we're missing a very fundamental point here. The founding of this country is on two documents. The Declaration of Independence, which for the first time in history says that the role of government is to protect what God has already given mankind, our inalienable rights.
Agreed.
The second document is the functional document that we operate by, the Constitution. And I'm not going to get into that, but one of the things the Constitution, and it was a raucous convention that they had down in Philadelphia. They even had fist fights to hammer things out. But when they got done, they purposely, many of them were very educated for their day, and that they wrote that document in simple language so the common people could understand it. It was not meant for lawyers. It was not meant for courts. And if we go by the Supreme Court or the federal court or some court has ruled that this is constitutional, then by Dred Scott, my dear sister here would be a piece of property. My friend Jamal would be a piece of property. Still to this day. And as you say, the concern of this growing monster government that we have that take away our rights. I'm a private businessman, and yet every time I turn around, as my grandfather said, one day I'd like to get up and put on my pants where the hand of the government wasn't in my pockets. You know? And the reason we're asking you to do this here at this level is because the power in this country was given to the people, not the courts, not the executive legislator in Washington called the president, not the people in Congress. The power and the dignity of this country comes from its citizens and its people. And the thing is, what we are asking you to do is represent us. And as Thomas Jefferson so eloquently said, standing up against tyranny is our God-given right. And you are the closest people to us as elected officials. There's three branches of government. The executive, which instead of creating laws and doing as he wishes, should only do what the law says, which, thank you for your statement. I understand where you are. In the military, there were things I was ordered to do that I had to do because I took my pledge, whether I agreed or not. That's the executive. The courts are to interpret, but the real power is in our representatives. you, the legislature. So no matter what the courts do, it's the legislatures. It's the ones that write the laws. They're the ones that are to stand up and say what is. And by the voice of the people and by our understanding of the Constitution, if the court ruled Dred Scott, if the court ruled this is okay, it doesn't make it right. The legislature has the responsibility. The people that are elected have the responsibility to stand up and say, no, this is not what we meant. This is not what we understand God gave us. This is not what the Constitution says. And that's what we're asking you to do. I know you walk into a fire, you run into battle in the Marines. I mean, the Navy and the Marines, we always went around the joke. The Marines did everything, but we took them there. You know.
Sometimes you left us there.
Yes, I know, too. And that. But the thing is, who is your doctor? Who's your medic? The Navy Corps.
Corpsman.
You
Never
never.
on a pedestal, sir.
Yeah, I know. And
I was in
or
the Air
ever
Force, I
faithful.
flew over them.
And usually drop bombs on us.
Yeah. But getting to my concluding emphasis is that it is the responsibility of the elected officials to stand up and really say, for their citizens, for the people you represent, what the Constitution really is and what it really means. The other two branches are not in that position. That is your position. That is your responsibility. And this is why we want you to take a stand, even if it goes against what... It's a verbal deal. We're not asking you to go out and... whatever. I'm not going to get into... I can't even find the words. But we're asking you to stand up and say, this is what it is and means. And that is the responsibility of the legislature.
And
So
I
thank
think we put that in that document, sir.
One, personally, I feel your heart of friendship in the effort that you made to make your version of a resolution. And personally, I thank you for reaching out in that way. And when I heard a presentation, a Panda presentation, you know, it all boils down, I'm a math guy, so it all boils down to one final answer. And the one final answer is, if some kooky federal movement is coming up from Washington to take me, my neighbor, over somebody's little itch that they felt in their nose about me, or some interception, and you know, I don't do wrong. I don't do evil. But that doesn't, other people have their responsibility to assess my behavior, and some people may think I'm bad, and the government may one day accidentally, like it's never happened, think that I'm a bad guy, or that my neighbor is a bad guy. So the interesting thing to me in the Panda presentation was, do I have, even at that late stage where I've already been fingered, some kind of protection? And the interesting thing to me was that the idea that local law enforcement is not an agent of the feds, and that the local law enforcement doesn't have to help the feds come and get me, you know. And I thought,
You have to stop them from getting.
yeah, to even stop them, to say that you're not coming in here to take one of my neighbors.
That's right.
You know, so if the idea that local law enforcement would be resolved to not aid, at least not aid, that's what mattered to me.
Isn't that the focus of Oath Keepers?
Yeah.
I'm very
it's
familiar with
similar.
the organization,
Yeah.
and
Oath
the
Keepers,
Constitutional Service
they-
Organization.
What you said, Jamal, they are against the Liberty Preservation Act, which the Senate is trying to pass in Pennsylvania, that says that the police will simply not aid, the state police will not aid a federal raid. But that is unconstitutional. That's why the Oath Keepers are against that, saying you have to stop them from, disappearing people without due process. It's a totally different,
So that's why I just felt that that's where the rubber met the road for me, that, that there's something in place beyond their insanity, close to me, where sanity exists.
Right.
That's really what mattered to me as a person. I just wanted to say that, and anything that you can do in our relationship, in this conversation, to move us towards that type of safety, for me personally, is greatly appreciated.
Well, sir, I appreciate your remarks, and just on a personal note, this is Rich Caridi again. I'm probably getting a lot of trouble for what I say, but you know what, at 67, I really don't care anymore.
Just say it, say it. You're a free man, say it.
You're free. I am a supporter and advocate for the Second Amendment. Not because I want to go hunting, not because I want to go target shooting, but to protect my family and their way of life against anybody.
This is a question for the solicitor. I want to make sure I understand what you said. You're basically saying that the NDAA section 1021 and 1022 doesn't apply to American citizens.
Correct. That's what the Second Circuit Court of Appeals said.
But are they correct? Do you agree with them?
Sir, I'm only the lawyer.
Doesn't-
My job as a lawyer. That's why you keep going on.
Okay.
Let me finish. In fairness to me.
This is really the problem.
Sir, you're missing the point.
This is the problem because you are wrong then. You are wrong on your decision as a legal decision. And this is where we have to stand up because you are wrong. This section 1021 and 1022 apply to American citizens.
Can I
Yes, it
finish?
does not prohibit it.
It doesn't, it's not my interpretation. It's what the judges who are elected or appointed decided, sir.
So why are you
So
doing
when you
here?
asked about you didn't let me finish. My job as an attorney is also have an oath, and my oath is to abide by the courts and what they conclude. I'm supposed to argue vigorously against things if I oppose it, and it seems to me finally, in front of the Second Circuit, both sides finally made arguments on both sides. But as we speak, it's my job to defend what those judges have decided. Period. Okay? So do I agree with them or disagree with them? My answer is, that's what they said. I do in principle agree with your pastor about his concerns about someone being taken away without due process, without the Bill of Rights. I accept those premises. I think with all due respect, every lawyer I know agrees with those premises. The issue is NADA. And with all due respect, as we speak, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals said it's constitutional. Period. I have to abide by that.
Yeah,
Okay.
my question was specific. Do you agree that the section 1021 and 1022 doesn't apply to American citizens?
My
If you
answer
read-
is
if you read-
the Second Circuit says it does not.
Okay,
Does not
but ask
apply.
you your opinion, your legal opinion. Does it apply? Because many lawyers come to the decision that it applies to. This is why we're here. If it didn't apply to us, we would not be here. So this is a real problem.
Sir, the problem is, it's not an argument anymore between me and other lawyers how to interpret it. Your court system, per the Constitution, has decided that it does not apply to U.S. citizens. So the answer is, the courts support your position and said it does not apply to U.S. citizens. I don't know how else I can explain it.
Well,
Your court,
this is
your
a real
system
problem.
says it does not apply to U.S. citizens. Period.
Okay, we are here because we don't agree with the court that it is not, because they are wrong. So they are wrong. It's been proven so many times. It's all over the place, and I don't know why we're discussing here this issue. It does apply to American citizens,
But
and that's the problem.
I don't understand why you would argue that. If the courts say it does not apply,
But the court is wrong.
Well, yeah,
That's
why
your
would you
opinion.
want them to be wrong?
you happen to live
You
in...
would think you don't want it to
Let's
apply.
have civil
I understand that.
Wait a minute, you live in the United States of America. That's our system. My father before me practiced law for 40 years. I practiced 35. I live by the law of the land. Rich and I disagree in the Second Amendment. And a lot of times I say, well, I think you're wrong. Rich says, the court said that. The court upheld it. The court says that's the law. I go along with it. I say, Rich, you're absolutely right. That's our system. And we abide by it. So if the court says something that's constitutional, fine. If you want to take it to court again and the court says it's not, then I'll abide by that. But all I can say right now is I'm not going to, you know, take a stance against a court, and that's our system, it's always been. Most of those people who signed the Declaration of Independence, I just spent a week down in Williamsburg, they were all lawyers. Thomas Jefferson was a lawyer, they upheld the law.
You have me confused because, sir, right now, based on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals decision, if they arrest me under that act, I can automatically use writ of habeas corpus and be released based on that decision. So why would you object to that? I don't understand why you reject their
Okay,
interpretation.
I sent you a video, a lot of information to explain those points.
No, I just wanted to know, it's not the point, I read all that. It's what the
No, you
court
did
said.
not. Did you
Sir.
did you go to the website of PANDA?
I don't, sir, I went to the decisions written by the courts. They're the final arbiters of decisions. And all I'm saying is, I understand PANDA, but the judges, the court system, said it does not apply to U.S. citizens. So I don't know why we object to that interpretation. That's what you want. You don't want it to apply. And they say it doesn't.
Pastor, I got a
It
bunch
does
of
apply,
hands.
that's the video.
I got a bunch of hands up. Father, thank you.
Have a nice day, Bob.
I know you haven't had a chance to speak yet. Yeah.
Commissioners, I do want to say, I understand 100% of your position. As when the healthcare, the affordable healthcare was passed, it was passed without even reading it. So we understand there are constitutional approvals by the court that are not really constitutional.
I brought it up last time.
Okay.
Cassie, Dred Scott's a perfect example. I brought it up the last time.
So I do appreciate your stand in the court, and Mr. Farley, I understand 100% what you're saying. I was in that position. I had to make decisions of which the laws were made. But I realized that the law, you made a statement, as a citizen, I feel this way, but as a commissioner, I have to vote this way. I was in that position, not of saying, I stepped down from my position because there are more citizens than there are representatives in the voted political stand. We are here not because we disagree with the Constitution, we disagree with the court passing that particular law. Okay, it's in law, I agree with you, nothing we can do. We're hoping, yeah, and that's why we're here.
Just a different.
We were hoping that you would see where we stand, that somehow we would get a voice through you to be able to, as a citizen, not as commissioner. And I know you're as a commissioner, you got to make that vote. I understand that 100%. Now, can you guide us, help us, that we can protect? Let me go one more step. We just went through an example here where state police was murdered. We had tanks in our street. Armored cars, can I say? Okay, let's go. We had overprotection that we needed at the time, I think, in my opinion. Okay, helicopters, police everywhere. We couldn't hunt, we couldn't go trick-or-treating for our kids. I mean, our rights were suspended for a temporary time. We know that. Now, if those state police fought, that murder was in my home, they would have not had any paperwork, they could have busted through my door and seized me under that law. Is that correct?
May I speak?
Now, I know what you said, we're rid of habeas corpus, but I don't think that stands in that
May I
particular law.
speak? I mean, I
Yeah.
was pretty close to this whole environment. Mr. Farley, excuse me. I was pretty close to this whole situation, not just because of where I live, but because I live in the western part of the county, and I was at the training center offering them all support services from all of our commissioners in any way we could. And it was up there where I brought people over from the correctional facility that are notary publics, so the district attorney could get his search warrants notarized. They exercised search warrants by the hundreds to break into cabins and every place else. I mean, I witnessed it firsthand. They went and, by the law, and did everything the Fourth Amendment prescribed them to do.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know if it doesn't apply to, if the NDAA doesn't apply to American citizens, then what happened with people from Arab descent and what happened in World War II with the Japanese, from Japanese descent?
The NDAA didn't exist back then, did it?
But the EUMF was used in 2001 to teach Arabs. And that's the problem.
I can't answer that.
EUMF is in the NDAA. It's in section 1021 under that authorization.
Pastor, they specifically decided that and said it doesn't apply to U.S. citizens.
But
Even then, the only time it applies for AUMF is if individuals who are involved with Al-Qaeda, involved with 9/11, and are not U.S. citizens.
Then how do you explain
It's right in their
Allah?
decision. I'm just telling you the
Mr.
decision.
Farley, how do you explain Anwar al-Awlaki, who was killed by Predator drone based on the AUMF, and his son, 2 weeks later in Yemen, was killed with no trial, no jury, no connection to Al-Qaeda? How do you explain that?
That is a constitutional
I don't
dilemma.
know that answer.
See, that's the thing.
No, but you're missing my.
Listen,
You
it's
came
been
here.
used to kill American citizens without due process. What are you talking about?
You're not inaccurate in your statement.
You're not
That has been
inaccurate. I'm only in the limited issue you came here in the first place was NADD, NADA, okay? That I addressed, okay? Specific cases, I don't know. Like any good lawyer, I would hope. But Pastor, you're asking me questions I don't even have a clue about. I don't know who that guy, but that's not what I'm here for. The issue was you came here to ask if they could have passed a resolution as written.
Right.
Okay, they can't. I explained to you why. I compromised and gave you a resolution, okay? That works.
6 other counties, how do you explain that?
Maybe their lawyer didn't do the work. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know, sir.
That's quite an indictment on 6 other
I don't
counties.
know. I can't in good conscience tell these 3 commissioners to sign that resolution as you passed. I can't.
Should we
I
give
can't.
Lowell had his
Sorry.
hand up, he didn't get a chance to speak.
I just had a,
You can blame me, but I can't.
yeah, I actually appreciate your position because you're really reflecting the essence of America, what our rule of law, that we live under this rule of law. I do want to make just an observation. We've seen in the last it's been going on for a long time that the very highest levels of our government now have completely disregarded what we've traditionally believed was the way that our government should work, such as separation of powers. We see we've got our president now that's got all of his legal teams guiding him to circumvent the rule of law. And I think every one of us here are concerned about that.
Not alone.
So, it's common knowledge. So we're at unprecedented times. I think nobody disagrees with what you're saying. Everybody, we applaud you for wanting to stick to the system as it's supposed to be, but we feel that it's crumbling. That the freedoms are falling like the leaves in autumn.
Well, I think, again, I'll be redundant, but yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
I think last night's election is a repudiation of the overreach of the government. Yes, ma'am.
I do have to take issue with one thing, that the law is written and they approved as being constitutional, states that it does not apply to American citizens. However, there is a very famous precedent where you had a young man who made a video which was cited in why Benghazi went down, and he was taken out of his home in the middle of the night. He's been detained. We don't know where that boy is. Now, he's an American citizen. So to say that it does not apply, you can cite habeas corpus, it's irrelevant when you have a power-hungry situation
You gotta expand on
whereby
that. I'm not familiar with it.
there's a boy that made the young Jewish kid who made a video like a satire against a parody of Islam.
Oh.
And he was arrested this is when Hillary Clinton was in our State Department. And so this boy was arrested, and they cited that video that he made, which was supposed to be some catalyst for why the attack in Benghazi took place. He was
Where? Here?
no, in California.
California.
In California, he has been detained. He has not been heard from since. He was never given a trial, and we don't know where he is.
No, he's been liberated.
Huh?
He has been liberated.
He is what?
He has been free. Yeah,
Oh, he's been
So
set
that,
free?
well, I'm just saying, in that case, he was taken in the middle of the night and arrested without due process, no charges, nothing, because he made a video as an artist. Now, I'm an artist. That's, when you say, and again, going back to the point of being defined belligerence, I can be as belligerent as the next person when it comes to how I feel I need to state my art against a
Just ask my wife if you want to.
yeah.
But I think the important part is, wait a minute, he was released.
Yes, he was released, but
Okay,
he was,
no, you're telling us that there's people that are being held for
no, I'm
extended
sorry,
period of
I got
time.
that wrong.
Okay.
There are Arab Americans, sir, who spent 3 years in Morocco jail because America sent them there.
It was
And
extraordinary.
this I
condition.
know of, and they've been tortured for 3 years. So this is not like something uncommon or unheard of. I am worried for my life, sir. My name, my background says I am a red flag. Anybody can disappear me now. So I am worried. What are we going to do? Speak fancy words? I'm not interested in fancy words.
Yes, sir.
Blame here and there, I'm not interested in blaming. I want action, I want answers.
I feel the same way because as a normal person, you know, to Robert's point, like they drafted the Declaration of Independence so that, as Robert said, normal people can read. So what we're saying, if I understand correctly, Mr. Farley, you're saying that whatever the law is as written, however vague it is, doesn't matter because the court said that 1021 and 1022 don't apply to American citizens?
No.
So functionally, it doesn't apply to American citizens because of what the court said, not necessarily because of the wording of the document.
What courts do is they look at laws passed by the legislature. And our legislatures aren't so perfect all the time. And many times, as the pastor's suggesting, the law is interpreted differently. Am I speaking up enough? I'm not.
I hear you.
Okay. So what happens many times is when you have an issue, you go to the courts and say, what does this mean? How do you, the courts, interpret it? You have the final interpretation.
Right.
And the courts in this case have, based on how we read it and the legislative history, many times what you do if you're a judge is you actually go back and see what the Senate and Congress in their legislative notes and what they intended to give you guidance on what the final result was. And they said based on going back to the legislative notes and see how they had their minutes and what the arguments were, sort of like that gentleman mentioned in the U.S. Constitution when they were fighting with Fisk, same concept, but what did they do? And then based on what they argued and discussed and passed, we the courts, based on what you finally wrote and looking at that legislative history, this is how we interpret the act.
Right. But
And they said we've interpreted.
How do normal people who don't follow legal
Precedent?
Yeah, legal
Well,
precedent know what their rights
Sir,
are?
I'll be honest with you. I did the research on it and I used part of it was the internet because I didn't know Judge Forrester. So I had to first use her through the internet and I figured things out and found opinions and everything. But I agree with you. It took me a while reading this thing, trying to figure it out myself. And I'm a lawyer. He's 35. I'm 30.
Why would I assert my rights if I didn't know what they were? Because, one, the document that's closest to me, the law that's closest to me, that could be in my hands, is vague. And two, the secondary way that I would know is to be a lawyer and to know what some court someplace else,
or if you're
how it interprets.
Well, but in fairness, if you really want to argue those points, you hire a lawyer to read for you and explain to you from
But
your
most people wouldn't do that. That's
But-
why
but it-
the convenience.
Can't afford it.
The convenience.
Then I'll flip it. Okay, and as solicitor for this county, for free, I did all this research for the residents of this county, and I'm giving you the interpretation based on all the reading. Okay? So there you go. I don't know what else to say. How's that?
First thing I get
Robert, just very,
Anchors away, Robert.
thank you very much. Let's set sail and move on. Anyway, I absolutely agree with the solicitor. I understand where he's coming from, and actually to everyone here, it may surprise him. I think his position is correct. But what I'm saying, and what I was in a long-winded way alluded to, is the problem came from the legislature that created the NDAA in the first place. And what I'm saying is, we really shouldn't look to the legal branch or the court branch to be the ones to resolve it. And that's why we're here in front of our legislative closest to us.
We are not the legislature. We don't write the law.
Okay, but we...
Mr. Marino and ilk write the law.
Okay.
Honest. The best example I can give you, if this commissioner's passed an ordinance, because we can pass ordinances.
Well,
It
that's
says-
legislating.
But then you come to us. But in this particular case, they didn't pass any of this. In fact, the Marino...
No.
So that's where you go, and I agree with you 100%.
No. You're saying the people that wrote, that passed, there's many different legislative mechanisms in our system. We have our most local, the state, the federal. There's different legislative bodies.
And with different authorities.
Okay.
And with different authorities.
Right.
Okay.
What we are saying, and what I understand from every time I read the Constitution, and every time I read the Declaration of Independence, and every time I get on my knees and pray before my God, is that the real power and the real liberty comes from God, comes from within, and the representatives closest to us in our system of government were the ones that were empowered to protect us and had the most authority. Those that are most distant from us should have the least authority. And that is why we come to you who do have the power of making legislative statements. Today in your deal, you did a deal on, what was that disease?
Epilepsy.
No, epilepsy. And you made a statement, and God bless you for that, and standing up for that, okay?
There's no legislation in that.
No legislation.
Yeah.
You did a functionary deal as in your position. We're asking in a similar vein, maybe does it carry legal standing? I don't know. But we want you to stand up and say, listen,
On principle.
on principle, on this is what we're dealing. I'm not wanting to get into a legal debate in the courts. Mohammed's not. Jamal's not. We're not. We want you to stand up and say, we're here for you.
Robert, we made a statement that supports the same principles that you're advocating for, right?
Well, I didn't hear a clear statement that Pike County is not to be under the laws of war or a battlefield.
We are.
You know,
We are, did you say we are? We are?
This gentleman has his hand up. We are.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was talking. Carl, what did you mean by that?
Did you say we are, Carl?
We are under the battle of war?
You said we're under the laws of war?
Under the laws.
Oh, he didn't hear you
I have the
right.
same problem.
He didn't
He has
say
a hearing problem every once in a while.
Yes, the laws are
Hi, my name's Red Cameron. I'm from Canadensis. And local people for 48 days were calling Canadensis a war zone. We had helicopters flying over our roof. Everything in the house is vibrating. People were, the acorns are all showing down on their roofs. I know somebody who wasn't allowed to go into their house for 36 hours. They couldn't go home. Their kids were in the house. That went on for 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's kind of about interpretation on one level. Like you're doing legal interpretations. The police are doing an interpretation of what they believe is the law, right? There was a person going to work every day up my street. He was questioned 20 times, and he was forced to the ground, broken ribs. I'm sorry, things happen which, the founding fathers never thought of. You folks, when you signed those documents you signed with the police, somehow I really believe we are losing our freedoms. We lost our freedom. I couldn't even really go up my street a couple of times. And I know the police were doing their job, but actually, even though I owned property on that street, I felt like there were times when it didn't really matter. I couldn't really move around freely. And also, there were times when I felt more worried, not about the killer in the woods, but about the police. I was on roads where 20 or 30 police cars went by. I was more worried about being injured by them. So it really is about interpretation, and I think we really have to look at that. And it's interesting, even right here in the courthouse, I really feel that we even lost freedom here. I'm sorry, the council chambers.
I'm just focusing on, you said that you lost freedom here.
Yeah, right here. There was a time when people could walk into the building freely, right? Now we cannot do that. these little freedoms are being eroded. You know, like even the local folks 400 years ago, they thought they were free to be here. They lived in their longhouses. People came to America seeking freedom because they were persecuted in Europe. They came here because they wanted freedom. Unfortunately, the local natives lost their freedom for our sake, right? And even a local gentleman who was on a statue for quite a long time here supposedly killed 99 people, 99 Native Americans. And some people would even argue that what happened here was kind of the beginning of the end for the Indians of the drive west. So again, it's about interpretation. I think we really have to look at how we interpret.
Well, let me say that if we're losing our freedoms here, to a certain extent we might, you find another country where you have more freedoms than we have here. You're not going to find one.
Yes, but it's right.
That's why we're concerned, because America's gone the freaking
Well, I'm not screwed
And that's why we're funding.
Still dialogue, one at a time. You know, I'm uncharacteristically patient according to my wife in public venues.
Thank you, Commissioners, for
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
And then we'll conclude. Pierre, I want peace in the family. Don't take a shot at me and insult my entire life as far as my adherence to constitutional principles and freedom and liberty. Please, all right? If you're going to make a statement, make it accurate. That's not what, this is not Rich Caridi's life.
Which statement was it?
Right there from you, your email. Operation Restore the Bill of Rights in Pike County. I never trampled on those Bill of Rights, sir.
None of us have.
Yeah, what I was saying is the NDAA.
No, I just read what you said.
Yeah, section 1021 and 1022 is shredding the Bill of Rights.
Then that's different than what you stated here, that went out in an email, that's in a public forum, because it besmirches my integrity and everything I stand for. And all I want to do is keep peace. If I do something wrong, feel free to criticize me.
It's like our laws, they can be misinterpreted.
That's what I tell my wife.
Rest my case.
Anything else, any other subject? And I'll say this, if you're going to go to Marino, I'm in. Let me know. Thank you very much for your civility.